Hello and welcome to Different Perspectives. I am Paul Ndiho. Today we are presenting a special recap of my exclusive interview with Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama, recorded days before he was sworn in for a second term on January 7th, 2025. After defeating former Vice President Mohamed Baumia, Mahama's return to power marked a significant political shift fueled largely by public frustration over the ruling party's economic failures. Ghanaians were fed up with rising inflation, national debt, and joblessness, and the devastating impact of illegal mining on local communities and the environment. In our sit down, President Mahama outlined bold plans to stabilize the economy, crack down on illegal mining, commonly known as galamsey, and restore accountability to leadership. Mr. President, thank you so much for granting us this opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you very much.
Let's start off with the economy. The election came down to the economy. Every single person was talking about how the economy was not doing very well for an ordinary Ghanaian. You promised to revive the economy, to reset the economy. Let's start then, Mr. President.
I'm sure you'd have heard during the campaign, I said, is the economy stupid? Quoting from what happened in Bill Clinton's campaign. And people thought that I was being offensive, and it did come down to the economy. All the opinion polls showed that the economy and employment were the most important issues. And so what we did was to drill down our message to issues to do with job creation and the economy, and eventually it did pay off. The economy is going to be the number one focus because it affects everything else. If the economy is in a bad way, it affects education, it affects agriculture, it affects sports, it affects every sector of the country. So we're going to have to be dealing with stabilizing the economy. Unfortunately, in this circumstance, we have two major issues. One, macroeconomic stability, and two, debt sustainability. In all the other times that we've gone to the IMF, it's just been for macroeconomic stability, but we have twin problems now. And so we're going to continue the IMF program. We already have requested some discussion with the IMF because we're not part of the negotiation of this program. And so we need to look at how we can all be on the same wavelength in terms of implementing the program. We're not going to jettison the program. I want to make that clear. We're not jettisoning the program. But within the program, I'm sure that there can be some leverage for tweaking it. And so if we're able to reach that agreement, then we'll continue the program till it ends. What it means is that the budgets must align with the IMF program. So there's not much leverage in there for making the kind of radical reforms that you might immediately need to make. But we would accept the reforms that are being made under the IMF and deepen them when we have our own program after the current extended credit facility runs out. So far, so good. Bringing down inflation is number one priority. Stabilizing the currency is number two. Bringing the deficit down, cutting expenditure, increasing revenues. Those are the things that we need to be looking at.
One of the things that resonated with the young people was the 24-hour economy.
Yes.
Do you care explaining what that means for ordinary Ghanaians?
Yeah. 24-hour economy is not a new thing. It's being implemented in many countries. And so Ghana will not be the first to implement a 24-hour economy. What a 24-hour economy does is that you provide incentives to the private sector to be able to increase their production and increase the number of working hours and increase the number of employees. That is what it is. And so it's purely an incentive-based program where you say, look, if you increase your production, you increase your number of employees, you increase your number of working hours, government will give you these incentives. It could include tax measures. It could include lower costs in terms of utilities and so on and so forth. So there are many other things that we could do. So immediately what we're doing is to set up a committee that will begin to flesh out the policy, because it's in our 120-day plan that within the 120 days, we'll come out with a clear-cut policy on the 24-hour economy policy. So we have to hit the ground running. So in the next few days, I'll inaugurate a committee that would outline the policy and do the necessary interactions with the business community. And then within 120 days, we'll launch the 24-hour economy policy.
Let's move on to the next topic, unemployment. Every single young person I talk to, they talk about how there are no jobs. Some of the colleagues that I have here, they talk about how there are no jobs. What are you going to do in at least the first 100 days to reassure these young people that the country can provide jobs, can create jobs for them?
Job creation is not an event, it's a process. And so you're not going to be able to, with one stroke of the pen, create the number of jobs that you want. The first thing is restoring the economy back to health and restoring it back onto the path of growth. That in itself will begin to throw up jobs. Businesses are suffering. A lot of businesses have laid off people just because of the crisis we've had in the economy. And so just bringing the economy back and letting businesses grow again, rejigging the construction sector, investing in infrastructure, carpenters, masons, steel benders will begin to get work again. And so that is our number one priority. We are not interested in the artificial job creation measures that have been done in the past, like NAPCO, Nation Builders Brigade, or Nation Builders Corps, where young people were taken through 3 years, paid an allowance, and promised that they'll be graduated into jobs. And at the end of the process, they've been abandoned. We're not going to do those artificial job creation measures. We already have the Youth Employment Agency that is creating those opportunities for training and for orientation for jobs. We think that Ghanaians are not all consigned to become employees. If you look at the government sector employs less than 1 million people out of a population of 33 million. And so it's not a viable sector where all the teeming youth can get a job. The best place to get a job would be for the private sector to grow. And in the past, what we've done is pay lip service to the private sector. It is time to take the private sector seriously, both in terms of expanding their capacity to employ, but at the same time, creating opportunities for young people to create their own jobs. And so that's why we have some programs that will assist young people who want to go into small and medium enterprises, baking, into poultry, into livestock rearing, into so many other areas that they want to go to. All they need is capital, they need mentorship. And so that's going to be one of our flagship programs. We're looking at reaching 10,000 young people every year. And so at least 40,000 jobs over the next, 40,000 entrepreneurs created over the next 4 years. And each of them employs 20 to 30 people. Then you can imagine how many people that would be affected. But the private sector mainly, and the 24-hour economy is the main driver for job creation, that we will assist the private sector. And we have a history of doing that. When I was president, we gave the pharmaceutical sector 50 million Ghana cedis at a time. And it made them put in new production lines. And based on putting in new production lines, they employed more Ghanaian youth to work in the pharmaceutical sector. So we want to build that sector as a hub for pharmaceutical exports into the sub-region. Now that we have the African Continental Free Trade Area, it should be possible for us to encourage Ghanaian business to take advantage of that and increase production so that we can export to all the other African countries.
Mr. President, let me follow up on a quicker point. You talked about how you're going to help young people acquire employment. Yesterday, I ran into a young lady by the names of Penelope Brooke Thompson. She runs a technical institute where she trains plumbers, artisans to gain gainful employment.
Yeah.
But her problem is she doesn't have funds to keep something like that going.
Yes.
So far, she's been actively doing it for about 2 years.
Yeah.
But she has trained about 180 who have gone on to graduate, and they're doing amazing work on them.
Yes.
So are there programs like that that can support young people like that?
It fits into 2 programs that we have. The National Apprenticeship Program, which would allow master craftsmen to train apprentices and give them the manual skills that they need to be able to either set up their own businesses or go into the world of work. So that is one aspect of it. We also have the intention to expand technical and vocational education training. And government is not going to be able to do it alone. We need a private sector like people like her to come on board. Because if we train skilled labor, people who can use their hands to work, if you look at the direction in which business is going, they're looking more for not grammar school kinds of people, not more people who have done humanities. There's an oversubscription of people who have degrees in humanities, including masters and PhDs. If you look at where business is going, it is going more for skilled labor. And so they need technicians, electricians, carpenters, skilled welders, and so on and so forth. And so if we're able to equip our young people with these skills, it will make it easier for them to be able to find work both locally, but also externally. It's been proven that our young people who go out with skills like carpenters or masons or electricians find it easier to get work when they go abroad than people who go without any skill. And so it's going to be a life skill for them, forever and ever, both locally and externally. We also have the opportunity to export some of this labor. The population in Asia and Europe is aging.
Right.
And so they have a deficit of skilled manpower. And so several countries are signing agreements where young Africans who are well skilled can go and work for fixed contracts, say 5 years, and come back. Germany and Kenya recently signed an agreement to send skilled technicians to Germany to go and work. We're willing to sign those kinds of contracts with other countries to see how we can train our young people and send them out for 3, 4, 5 years. They come back even more skilled. They come back with their own capital. They're able to set up their own businesses. And so those are all things that we're going to look at. And we're happy to talk to this lady.
Sure, I think I can make that happen for her.
Okay.
Mr. President, when it comes to education, a lot of young people thought maybe the election could have even gone the other way because of free education. But at the same time, they are worried that this program where a lot of young people are benefiting, or the parents are afraid that once you get into office, you might scrap that. Is that something that you're going to keep? You're going to keep that premise going?
First, let me look into the camera, read my lips. Free SHS has come to stay, and it is not going anywhere. Nobody is going to scrap free SHS. What was said was political talk, and it was just political gimmickry. Free SHS is not going anywhere. We're going to maintain the policy. What we're going to do is to get dedicated funding for it so that it is better resourced than it is currently. There's a lot of waste in the system. We're going to help to make it more efficient so that the teachers, the parents, and the students get the best out of the free SHS. We're going to look at the basic school level too. Because we have focused on free SHS, we are abandoning the basic level. And so the basic level is becoming a major problem. 1.3 million pupils at the basic level do not have furniture. They don't have tables and chairs to sit on. They lie on their stomachs in the classroom or sit on cement blocks. And that's because all our focus has been on the secondary school level. So we're going to hold a national education forum. And that forum is going to bring all the stakeholders together. And we're going to take a look at the whole education value chain. And we're going to come, and by consensus, all of us, it's non-partisan, everybody of every walk of life who has a stake in education is going to be at that conference. And we're going to take important decisions on how to reform our education so that the children get better quality and better value for money. And so that's what we're going to look at. But the thing about me scrapping free SHS, it was just political gimmickry by the MPP. Free SHS has come to stay. We're going to make it better. We're going to improve the quality of the food for the children. We're going to expand the infrastructure so that they have dormitories, they have classrooms, they have dining halls, so that they're able to get the best out of secondary education.
my producer tells me that we hear of Galamsey.
Yeah.
What do you say about it? How are you going to? We had protests last year and previously. There's been a lot of agitation, people wanting that to stop. What can you do about it?
Yeah, one of the first things is to pass the LI to ban mining in forest reserves. When this government came, they passed an LI which allowed entry into forest reserves to mine. And since the last 8 years, 37 forest reserves have been, there have been incursions into 37 forest reserves. Some have been almost completely destroyed. And so the first thing is to stop mining in forest reserves, because that's where all the rivers get their catchment area. That's where the water comes from, into the rivers. The next thing is to clean up the rivers and stop those who are mining and pouring the effluent into the rivers. And so we're going to work with the Minerals Commission and the Environmental Protection Agency to see how we implement the law so that it stops this poisoning of our water bodies. The first thing is that the Minerals Commission and EP and others are the regulatory agencies. Unfortunately, they do not have officers and personnel in all the mining districts. Their main office is in Accra, and they have a few offices in some districts. We have to open offices everywhere and have their people on the ground. We must hold the officers in the district, the district chief executive, and the security agencies in the district responsible for illegal mining. But let me explain. People make a mistake between small-scale mining and illegal mining. Small-scale mining is legal, and there are ways of doing small-scale mining without destroying the environment. It's done in Canada, it's done in Australia, it's done in the United States, and the technology exists. And so why don't we bring down that technology and train our people to do the mining in a way that is safe for the environment? Those are all things we're willing to consider.
Well, Mr. President, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
President John Dramani Mahama spoke to us right before his inauguration. Folks, there you have it. Let me know if the president has made any progress on some of the initiatives he outlined in this interview at the beginning of his term. Your feedback is very important to us, so please share your perspective in the comments below. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to Paul Ndiho on X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and YouTube.